In the wise words of Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it is not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. You could make $1 million today, but if you squander it tomorrow, it doesn't matter a whole lot that you made that million. In essence, earning money is one side of the coin. Protecting and multiplying it is quite another. A skill that must be learned early on, because how many times have you heard or read stories of people who had long, successful, well-paying careers but retired without much? Unfortunately, this happens all too often and has sometimes been attributed to failing to make sound financial plans at the start of many of these people's careers. In this light, we discuss some financial mistakes to avoid like the plague when one is starting out in their career with financial planner at Assure Wealth Lianna Koorapetse.
There are many mistakes that we all make throughout life. It just depends on where we want to end up in life. So the financial mistakes when we're starting out in our careers, the first one is forgetting where we want to end up. And start investing our money, our time, our emotions, our physical health into things that don't serve us. Budgeting. Not having a budget at all. It could start as something very, very small to say, okay, this is the small steps I'm going to take in order to arrive where I want to arrive. Now, when we start that job, we get our first salary, we blow it. And we forget all about our budget. So the first mistake is forgetting our budget or not even having a budget. Be mindful not to accept a salary that's too low. Because while we're studying and we're in these groups of circles, now we get to see the kind of lifestyle that we would like to have. So this lifestyle doesn't come out of nowhere. It started back in university to say, or college to say, okay, fine, once I start my job, this is the starting salary, and then reality hits and you're getting less than what you expected, but you're wishing to use the little that you have to achieve the more that kind of seems impossible. So even with that, that's the first thing. Look at the salary and try to work with what you have. And avoiding debt. That's another thing as well. Debt, a typical example would be car loans. Car loans are not really bad, most especially when you're young, because you can pay it off. The problem becomes when they have something called a balloon payment. A balloon payment is the last payment you're supposed to pay to finish off the loan of the car. Sometimes it's 40%. Now imagine you've been paying the worth of the car's depreciating, but the last payment is not how much is left in terms of the loan. It is calculated as a percentage of the initial worth of the car. And that's what usually people are not prepared for, because it's one thing that could end up crippling us when we're not expecting it.
But should somebody find themselves in the thick of committing these mistakes, what course of action is best to take to settle up to now get back on track?
Accept the situation as it is. Living more in denial is not going to help anyone. So accepting the situation as it is, the reality of it, and also accepting the ripple effects of it. Because sometimes it affects our immediate family members. You know, sometimes we borrow money to say, oh, let me top up and do 1, 2, 3. And then you don't get anything back from it. And now you have to answer to somebody else. Number 2, seek out professional help. Not necessarily just financial planners or advisors, also counseling. Because it does wear you down as an individual. Now we know more now than ever that we've got high levels of depression. We need to now seek mental help from those professionals at the same time while seeking help from financial professionals. So seeking help, now it's also keeping in mind that we didn't wake up and find ourselves in that situation. So we need to be prepared to know that it's going to take some time to repair that situation. So also giving the professional time to do what they do and working hand in hand to make sure that we don't find ourselves in the same position later on. So that begins with budgeting. Sometimes we have to downgrade lifestyle because we cannot afford it. That's how we ended up where we are. So downgrading, even considering moving, considering getting other jobs, increasing income. We need to be able to realize that it is going to take a certain degree of sacrifice on our part to say, okay, I want to get out of the situation, and it's a goal that I am going to do everything in my power to achieve.
Perhaps you could now speak about some of those, I want to say, financial vehicles that you would say are suited for somebody who's only starting out, maybe to invest in, maybe to look into to increase their incomes, that sort of thing.
As you said, it's a vehicle. So it doesn't matter what age you are. It depends on knowing the type of vehicle it is and what you can use it for. So financial education is a very important part. What we can see in the industry right now, you've got a certain product, it has a name on it, but it doesn't work as the name says it should work. So now it's up to us to say, okay, because usually product providers give you a brochure, you see, okay, what is it used for, the skeletal structure of the product. And then we decide how we're going to use it. So savings accounts are very good. We need to build up an emergency fund. An emergency fund is 3 months of your salary or 6 months of your expenses. Same thing, where does it come from? The 50-30-20 rule. 50% of your salary goes to your needs. Your rent, your fuel, if you have a car, your loans that are reasonable, school fees if you have a family, and so and so. 20% goes to savings. 30% it's to your wants. Now, if you look at 50% going to your needs, 50% is your expenses. So that's where the 6 months of your expenses come in, because 50% times 2 is 1, that makes it 3 months. So that's where the aspect came in. But also another thing we need to account for, the industry that we're in. Some people, they can get a job in a week. If they get retrenched today, next week they can get a job. Some people, it can take a year or 2 years. So we need to account for that when thinking about our emergency fund. Emergency fund is for unplanned events. It could be funerals. It could be a friend who forgot to invite you to their wedding. They're like, well, it's next week. You have to come. You need to buy a gift. In medical situations as well, we know even with medical aid, you have that 10% plus VAT that you pay. I mean, you need that money to come from somewhere. Emergency funds pay for all those things, even car breakdowns. So that's a very important vehicle to have. And it can be anywhere. You can have your emergency fund, it's funds that are easily accessible. So you can save it in a bank, because you know that within 12 months you either would have used it or moved it. Money market funds as well. Any investment that you feel, or financial product you feel that, okay, if I call them up, I can access this money in less than 48 hours. That's for an emergency fund. We need to also think about retirement. The earlier we save, the earlier we put money away for retirement, the better. Why so? Compound interest. Compound interest, the longer we save money, the larger the amount becomes. So even if our salary towards retirement is significantly larger than our first salary, but if we look at the fact that the initial salary was put there, left there for 40 years, that balance could more times than none be over the amount for the larger salary. So saving for retirement. So an emergency fund, saving for retirement, and also thinking of other things as well. Housing, insurance, life cover. But it boils down to us knowing what these products are used for and seeing how they fit into our plan.
So lastly, Lianna, You readily speak of all of these things, the vehicles, the mistakes to avoid, and you know how to get out of it. How accessible is this information for people to find?
It's very accessible right now. Very, very accessible. We've got internet, we've got social media, like we've got Google. It's rare to get Google to say no results, unless it's our names, maybe. But most information is readily available at our fingertips. Social media, you name it, even on TV, radios, it's everywhere. So it's up to us to actually know what we want to look for and who to seek help from. But it ultimately boils down to us narrowing that word search down to say, okay, is my problem debt? Now let me search for debt, you know, versus is my problem with saving? I can't get debt help when I'm searching for savings. So it's readily available. Now, what's not readily available is the professionals. There's a difference between financial advisors and financial planners across the industry, most especially in Botswana, because one thing that you will get to realize, or maybe this information is not widely known. Botswana is one of those countries that have very weak legislation when it comes to regulating financial professionals. South Africa is very strict. Other countries outside are very, very strict. For example, in South Africa, the companies are regulated, or the institutions are regulated, as well as the professionals. In Botswana, the companies are regulated, but the professionals are not. So it could be anyone, regardless of education or experience, that can end up having a business card to say, well, I can offer you this advice and so and so. The only difference would be when it comes to the banking sector, they have their own association, and the insurance sector, where they have the certificate of proficiency. But when it comes to investments, nope. There's no one who can actually say, you know what, no, you can't be doing 1, 2, 3. You need this level of education or experience, or if it ends up being a scam, how are they going to, which law are they going to use in terms of to actually say, no, give them back their money? And we have no regulation. Also, even when it comes to creditors as well, other countries have a maximum limit to say, you know what, you are not allowed to charge this much interest when it comes to credit or loans. In Botswana, we don't have that. So we do have quite a bit of a long way to go to make sure that consumers are protected, because now it's open season.
This program was brought to you in association with First National Bank of Botswana.